Following through on the U.S.-China trade deal, the U.S. has lowered tariffs on Chinese imports, with China making several commitments on fentanyl, rare earth minerals, and U.S. agricultural purchases. To dive into this, we're joined by Senator Todd Young. Senator Todd Young, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me on, Jack.
Now, the Trump administration is confirming that the first of many shipments of American wheat and sorghum to China have been made over the last week. Does this show that the U.S.-China deal is panning out?
Well, I think it does. At least it shows some positive initial signals. So much of the readout related to the conversations between the Chinese leader Xi Jinping and President Trump seemed to involve enforcement or agreement to enforce the provisions of the so-called Phase 1 agreement from years ago that President Trump had negotiated. So it's good to see that the Chinese will, in fact, be buying the soybeans from Indiana, the wheat and sorghum from other parts of the country. But I can't emphasize enough that until these conditions are met and we start to see enforcement, we can't let up in terms of monitoring the agreement.
Right, and the CCP did go back on their word during President Trump's first term on that Phase 1 of the deal. Yes. But the Supreme Court right now is deciding whether Trump can impose reciprocal tariffs on other nations, China included here. If the Supreme Court rules against Trump, do you think that the U.S. will have less trade leverage and the CCP will again break the deal?
I don't think there will be less leverage because Secretary of the Treasury Bessent and our U.S. Trade Ambassador have both indicated that we have contingency plans already available. That is, there are other authorities under a 1974 law and a 1930 law that can be used for the president to increase tariffs on other countries. So they've identified to what extent they're going to increase tariffs if the court decision goes the wrong way for the administration. And I think his leverage will remain intact. One big question, admittedly, is going to be the extent to which Congress starts overseeing these activities and learning more about the plan as we head into next year and beyond. I think my businesses, my farmers understand President Trump is trying to reset trade relations in a way that are more favorable to our country, in a way that allows us to reshore our productive capacity. But many of them want more clarity about the future.
Mm-hmm. As part of this trade deal, the U.S. and China have suspended reciprocal port fees on each other. Trump imposed these fees on Chinese-made ships last month coming to U.S. ports, in part to reignite American shipbuilding. Right now, China dominates the industry because of non-market state funding. Why is this such a national security issue?
Well, it's a national security issue because we've literally lost the productive capacity to produce the ships that our U.S. Navy needs in time of war, but also in time of peace to produce the ocean-going vessels that are essential to participate in a modern economy as the U.S. requires. So we're going to reshore that productive capacity. It'll take a number of years. I've been working in a bipartisan way here in Congress and also working with the administration to come up with a plan to unlock foreign capital. We saw the president was having meetings with the leaders of South Korea and Japan during his recent Asia visit, and they reached further agreement to see more Asian investment in our shipyards and in our workforce. And then in addition to that, we're trying to direct some federal taxpayer support directly into shipyard capacity, workforce training so that we have more people who can build ships, and training more merchant mariners so that American farmers and manufacturers will be moving their commodities and manufactured goods increasingly on American-built, American-crewed, and American-owned ships. And that's ultimately where we'd like to end up.
Yeah, and that what you're working on is getting bipartisan support there. Senator Mark Kelly following you up there and co-sponsoring legislation to address that. But I want to move on to another looming national security concern. It's biotech. The U.S. dominates in this field, but China's working to catch up and come ahead. How critical is it for the U.S. to maintain an edge in this field? And would the U.S. be reliant on its biggest adversary for life-saving medicine, for instance, if they catch up?
Well, the short answer to your question that you closed with was yes. If China catches up to the United States in terms of innovative capacity and the ability to manufacture many biotech products, then we could not only lose our way, we could lose our country. We could lose a war, because increasingly we're finding that biotech has very important applications for our war fighters, from making sure we have the most resilient, lightweight materials to benefit our war fighters, to being able to develop shelf-stable blood out in the field through biological means, not requiring on extended supply chains in order to offer life-saving treatment. These are the sorts of things that are within reach right now because of recent biotech innovations. China understands this. In fact, for the last roughly decade, they've really been doubling and tripling down on their investments in biotechnology as part of their Made in China 2025 initiative. And they're doing so for national security purposes. The U.S. has become used to being a leader in biopharma and ag bioscience. And I believe we're still the world leader in these areas, but China's rapidly catching up, and they'll soon pass us. The area of biomanufacturing in particular is one in which China is arguably already ahead of us. And if we don't take very bold action here in Congress, which is what I have been advocating for, making additional investments and improving the regulatory atmosphere, training the workforce of the future, and working with partners and allies to pool our resources and investments. If we don't do all those things and more, we're going to lose this biotech race with China.
A lot to keep our eye on here. Senator Todd Young from the great state of Indiana, thank you very much for your insights here today.
Thanks for having me, Jack.